My father, what did I tell you?
Yeah, at the
My
on
father
Second
came
Avenue.
to America
Oh.
in 1882, and he became a citizen as soon as he stayed the required time. He wrote, he kept his own books, and he became a citizen in 1892. I was born in 1898. See, there was one time before I was born, he and my mother both came from Hungary. My mother came from Budapest.
We were in that little town in
We
Hungary.
were there now, yes.
When we took the trip. When we took the trip.
When we were in Hungary.
Hungary, we passed that little town.
What we were in Hungary.
What's the name of the town? The name of it?
Budapest.
No, it was...
Where my mother and my father, Henry was born, came from Sigurd. In Hungary. Your grandfather,
we were in that town.
Came from Sigurd in Hungary, and my mother came from Budapest. My father, when he was 4 years old, was apprenticed to a tailor. He had a stepmother, and that happened with every Jewish family. The women used to die, and the men used to marry again. The law sort of, tradition, decreed that a man should not be without a wife, see, and they would marry preferably a sister.
But just the same
But
story.
if a sister weren't available, then they would marry anybody they met, see. And usually the stepmother was not as good unless she had been assistant to the one who died. So when he was between 4 and 5 years old, when he was given a peckle, that means one set of underwear, and maybe 10 cents, what would amount to 10 cents, and he was apprenticed to a tailor. And he lived with this tailor and probably learned the trade when he was maybe, 18, 19 years old. By then, 18, 19 years old was an old man. I mean, then you had 3 or 4 children by then, see. And he was married. He was married in Europe. And they had my oldest brother, Dave, who became a physician. Your grandmother, Ray, was 6 months old when she came over with my mother. My father came first, as all of them did. The father would come first and then send money home for tickets. So when my mother came, her name was Bertha. It had been Bertha Jacobowitz, and then when she got married, this Rosner. So she came with Dave, who was about 18 months old, and Ray, your grandmother, who was 6 months old. Also a cousin, Sam Cooper, who was an orphan. And she came to America, and then they settled up in a business. My father was a tailor from Europe, and my mother sewed very well, so they did dressmaking. And they lived in 1820 Avenue B. There was Helen, then Harry. You knew Harry very well. And then I was the last. When I was born, my mother was very, very sick, and Ray was 13 years old. That's how much older than I am. She was. So she took care of me, and she mothered me, because when my mother got better, she was in the business. And my mother used to work for very fine people and actresses of the Yiddish Theater. So I was brought up, this is interesting, sorry Peter, I was brought up knowing to laugh, knowing all these actresses in the theater, and my mother naturally had tickets to the shows, and we would go there. That's a different story. Dr.